Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our final session of Darwin on the Palouse for 2013. Thank you. We're so very happy to have you all with us. Last year, we set out to have a small Darwin Day celebration here in Moscow. We wanted to get together with the two student groups, the secular Cougs at WSU and Free Thought Moscow at the University of Idaho, together with our humanist group, the Humanists of the Palouse, and try to put together just a small Darwin Day celebration. And it got a little bigger than we'd anticipated. So this year, with the support of the community, we decided we were going to give it another try. And we couldn't be happier to be back here doing this again. And a few people that I'd like to thank, a few organizations. It's all volunteers, and it takes quite a bit of work. The Humanists of the Palouse, many members put in countless hours to put it together. As I've mentioned, our two student groups, Free Thought Moscow with the University of Idaho and the secular Cougs at Washington State University. The American Humanist Association, who's great to help support and sponsor our event. The facility staff here at the University of Idaho has just been fantastic to deal with. And some local donors whose generous contributions really make this possible. So it's just great to be able to put something like this together and have something like this in our community. Albert Camus said, "An intellectual is someone whose mind watches itself." And Camus, he's one of my favorite authors. I really enjoy his writings. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. Our ability to be introspective is imperative in our quest for moral and psychological growth. On a related note, a study was presented this year at the American Heart Association meeting, and it showed that laughing, and especially the ability to laugh at yourself, could lower blood pressure, possibly even as much as cutting salt from your diet and losing 10 pounds. So at this session of Darwin on the Palouse, it's going to be really good for your health, both your physical and your mental health. So again, welcome to our final session of Darwin on the Palouse 2013. In a moment, I'm going to ask the president of the Free Thought Moscow group, the University of Idaho student group, to introduce our presenter tonight. And then we'll have a film, and if time permits, we'll do a brief question and answer after the film presentation. Following tonight's event, we will have a social gathering at Myelina. It's the new Italian restaurant that's on the corner of 6th and Main, for anyone who would like to stop by. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Nicole. And again, thank you for coming tonight.
Hi, everybody. I was going to do that thing where you don't have note cards, but I think that might only work at church. So I'm introducing Julia Sweeney, and I thought it'd be fun to share a few fun facts that I found on her Wikipedia page, because that's what I like to do when I learn about people. So my favorite was she was Raquel in Pulp Fiction. I liked that movie. She was a consultant on Desperate Housewives. Obviously, you know she was on SNL. She was a Delta Gamma. And she was in The Groundlings. And then, what was the other one? And then it turned sideways. And then also, the movie version of God Said Ha was produced by Quentin Tarantino. And that was my favorite. So with that, here's Julia Sweeney.
Hello, everyone. Stop. I could not be happier to be here. I would come here every year if I could. You might not be able to stop me from coming back next year. I could not be happier to be here. I got to see a really close old friend today that I haven't seen for a long time, and I couldn't be happier that there's a skeptic group here and showing my film, which is fantastic. I'm so honored, and what do I have to say about it? I have continued, I'll talk to you after the movie. I've continued my thinking since this film. I really kept this monologue and this film very singular personal, meaning that I really made it a point not to make big pronouncements about other people or what other people should do or think. And in some ways, I still feel that way. I feel like it was a really personal, transformative journey. But now, it was about 2004 when I actually went through my epiphanies about religion. So now, oh my God, it's almost 10 years ago. I continue to think, I keep evolving as a person. I continue to think about it. I haven't changed my mind about the existence of God, but I think a lot about the role that religion plays in our society and what it gives and what it takes and the costs. And I haven't even landed on what I really, really think about it, but I keep thinking about it. I feel like I'm a person in progress. And I did decide that I wrote this book called If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother, that comes out April 2nd, and from Simon & Schuster. And they want to do another book with me, and I've decided that what I want to write is a book, which I've just come up with the title so far, which is My Beautiful Loss of Faith Story, A Catholic Girl Goes Rogue. And I'm just in the beginning stages of thinking about what that is going to be about. So this is kind of a very important time for me because I'm turning my attention back to religion after many years of sort of trying not to think about religion at all. And I'll be happy to answer your questions afterwards. And thank you again so much for being here. All right. Thank you so much. Well, I've only watched part of that, but I haven't seen it in a really long time. One guy came out in the back when I was there, and he didn't know that was me, and he goes, God, she can talk so much. I wish she would just wrap it up. So anyway, I go, I know, I agree with you. But anyway, so that was so amazing to watch that. I watched probably half of it, but that was still amazing. Because there's so many parts of it that I forgot, and so many, anyway. So I'm here to answer questions, and I guess there's a microphone there, but I told the organizers that I could probably hear the question, and then I could repeat it up here if that was better. Does anyone have a question? Come on, people, have a question. Oh, the memorizing was so difficult. Did you memorize that? That was the question. Yes, and I actually had to postpone the opening because I actually was so overwhelmed with memorizing it. It was such an unwieldy, long thing. And, of course, it had to be memorized. I couldn't read it. That's what a one-person show is. But I gave myself, a month of shows to really memorize it. So I would do previews where I would have notes or, sometimes I'd be just holding a script and I would tell the audience before, but I couldn't, I started thinking, is it even possible for a human to memorize this much, And then I was friends at the time and talking a lot to this guy, Michael Newdow. Do you know who he is? He's this guy who brought the suit before the Supreme Court to take under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. And he's this really kind of eccentric, interesting guy. He's a lawyer and a doctor. He works as an emergency room doctor, and he's also a lawyer. And he represented himself before the Supreme Court. Anyway, he's such a nut. And I was talking to him, and I was like, I can't do it. How do you memorize so much, being a lawyer and a doctor? And he said, just record yourself saying it, and then play it back to yourself in the car. And then every day, read the whole thing out, and I am telling you, within 3 weeks, you'll have it. This is a way too detailed answer, by the way. But anyway, and it worked, but it was really traumatic. I had to move my opening by a month, which was a big deal because, you have critics coming and all this stuff, and it makes you look really bad. And it was very difficult to memorize it. But then after a while, after I was doing it for a year, you could just start me with the first line, and it was I could just be propped up and go. So, yes? Is it socially unacceptable to be an out atheist? In my family, yes. Although my family really, my mom still has the most problem with it. Actually, the most Catholic person in our family is my mother's sister, Bonnie, who lives in Seattle and is like a daily communicant and would probably be a nun if she could, and she is very liberal and really almost radical liberal in her theology, and is probably right now she's still out there protesting against how the nuns are being treated by the Vatican right now. And she was the most open to me being an atheist. Like, she was the most, it was really interesting in the context of my family being an out atheist that I feel that the people who were more concerned about what others thought about them were the most upset about me being an atheist. But now I'm feeling like this is too harsh, but it seemed like the truest believers were the most open. And I think that's true because they take this so seriously. It isn't about doing it for the public, for them, those people. So like my Aunt Bonnie, she really takes her faith seriously, and she doesn't wrestle with her faith because she just, for her reasons, she's a believer, and she knows she stands out, And so to me, we became closer through that. So it's been an interesting thing in my family. In the larger world, like in Los Angeles, it's very interesting because, especially amongst comedians, or there's a lot of atheists, a lot of people make a lot of jokes about religion, and I take religion seriously. So I'm in this kind of hybrid where I make fun of it, but I also take it seriously. But there were a lot of people in LA who would say, this was common, where people would say, oh, the only scary thing about your show, Julia, is that you were ever a believer to begin with. And how could you have ever believed to begin with? It's so ridiculous. And I would say, yeah, I guess that's true. I just didn't realize that. And they go, but you should come with me to see this psychic next week because she is so fantastic. They immediately, it really didn't come from good critical thinking skills. It was more like a cultural thing that, like in Los Angeles, amongst my set in show business, it was not fashionable to be religious, but it was absolutely fashionable to believe in just as ludicrous of things. So then I'd say, well, I'm not going to go to a psychic. That's ridiculous. And they'd be like, what is wrong with you? There's a lot of evidence based on that. You shouldn't close yourself off. And of course it wouldn't work for you if you don't believe it. Everything they said, and yet they totally ridiculed religion. So that was a big education in Hollywood. And it is true, now I live in this smaller town. It's just north of Chicago. It's an affluent suburb, basically, of Chicago. It's formed by German Catholic immigrants, so there's lots of Catholic churches from, the turn of the century. The turn of the century before the last one. And people are socially religious, but they're not, it's really a social thing is what I get from it. Of course, I don't know, but it seems like they don't like me saying I'm an atheist because it's almost like saying I'm not going to be part of the country club. You know what I mean? I'm not a joiner is what it says. That's another aspect of it. You seem like an outlier. You're not a community person. And I don't want people to think that way, although in fact I'm really not a community person. So anyway, that's another too elaborate answer, but it's been a real education for me. It's something I want to write about now, what all the different ways. Because the most interesting thing is I feel like I'm discriminated most in liberal circles who think of atheism or non-belief, or even humanism as an extreme, that they're into this liberal worldview that is where everyone's right, and we have to include everybody, and everybody gets their fair say, and everybody gets to be heard. And even though there are wonderful things about that, it probably irritates me more because I'm put into a category of extreme that they don't really want to be with, because if they voice that they agree with me, it puts them in an extreme category, and their whole base of liberalism is about accepting everything and nothing's wrong. and everything's right. And I think that actually makes me angrier than conservatives, because at least they're saying what they think they believe and sticking to it. I can disagree with them, but they're not changing what they believe every second. So that's like a different reaction I've gotten that's been a shock to me. Yeah. Oh, I think it's excellent. Oh, yeah. Well, I had cervical cancer, but I had a hysterectomy. Should I get more graphic? Fortunately, I had cancer of a reproductive organ, so you don't need that. And no, I feel good. Yep. How old was I when I got cancer? Now let me think. I left Saturday Night Live when I was 34, and I guess I got it the next year at 35. Yeah. She said she appreciated the thought process and what insights have I gotten since I made the movie. Well, in a way, it's funny watching the part of it that I watched tonight. I was like, wow, I really wouldn't change anything in it now. Like I still believe everything, like I haven't really changed. If anything, I'm much, like when I watch myself in this movie, I see me much more Catholic than I am now. I really am, even though I actually still go to Mass. Not all the time, but once a month I go, because I just find it anthropologically interesting. Also, I find the rituals comforting. I like being there. I find it's just interesting to me. But I watch that and I see, I was much more emotionally tied to the Catholic Church than I feel now. I feel now I really am a secular person who really doesn't have that much affection for it. Enough to go to church now and then, which is probably way more than most people would do. But I still feel like I'm farther away from it than that. And, but now I'm more interested in how religion works as a social organizing tool. I'm really interested in that. I don't encourage people to just dump their religion unless they're real thinkers and they really are going to think it all through deeply. Because I do feel that a lot of people don't believe, but they're lazy non-believers. They don't really want to go to church, and they haven't had enough benefit to being part of a religion, but they haven't thought it through so much that they're not part of a religion. And I find that to be kind of dangerous, because I feel like they're just vulnerable spores out there waiting to be attacked by a virus, So I see religion more anthropologically now. Or I have people write to me. I just got a letter recently saying, oh, I don't believe, but I'm going to go be with my family at Thanksgiving or whatever it was. And when we have the family is all going to bow their heads and pray, what should I do? And I wrote, you should pray. You should pray with them. You should bow your head. This is a moment of silence where you're all sitting here together, appreciating the food you're about to eat or whatever it is. Like, I guess I'm not like Dawkins, like I thought I was. I actually think we have to find ways where we participate with people who are in religions. It's such an important part of our society. So, and I don't even know where I'm going with that, but that's sort of those are the insights I have, so blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes? Well, she asked me about meditation. I can't tell you how important meditation has been for me, and not just because of coming out of religion. It's because I am really an ADD personality. Even though I think that's sort of a crazy construct, the whole ADD and ADHD thing, I hate that. But my mind hops around, and especially in our technological world that we have now, it hops around a lot, and I have a hard time focusing. And I didn't want to do, like I did one kind of meditation. Oh, the Maharishi meditation. Transcendental meditation. I took a transcendental meditation class. I found that was filled with magical thinking. It was all filled with these ideas that you're going to levitate yourself and all these crazy claims, like people in India are praying and people in Washington, D.C. aren't committing crimes, and just bullshit, stuff like that. I couldn't take it. But then I discovered John Kabat-Zinn, who runs the mindfulness meditation program at the University of in Boston, and he's written all these great books. Full Catastrophe Living, I think, is the first one, and then he leads all these mindfulness meditation. He's basically taken all this stuff from the Eastern religions, and he's not the only one, but he's the one that I have learned the most from. And he studies it scientifically, what meditating can do, it's basically about using your breath to connect with your body and letting the thoughts just float by like clouds, and how much it improves your focus. And he's done all these studies on people who are ill and how much doing this meditation has helped them, like really quantifiable stuff. And you can get tapes, from him. And in Los Angeles, I took a mindfulness meditation, like a 16-week course, and it was fantastic. We did things like, they have this raisin meditation where you just have a raisin and you spend 5 minutes looking at the raisin, and then you spend another 3 minutes with the raisin in your mouth that you're not chewing. It's, so it's all about focus and stuff like that. And so now I found a mindfulness meditation place in Chicago, where I live, and I did a mindfulness eating meditation 16-week course at the beginning of last year that was really helpful. And now every day I try to do this 40-minute, I ended up doing it like 3 or 4 days a week, but my goal is to do it every day. And I do a 40-minute guided meditation. And the first thing he says in it is, try not to fall asleep during this meditation. And I fall asleep immediately when he says those words. It's like he says, do not fall asleep, and I am asleep. But then I wake up about 10 minutes into it, and I do it, and it has really helped me. So that's not really religion, but it is one of those cross-sections of religion, what you can get out of religious practice. Yes? Well, okay, so he's asking me about when in the movie I say truth is a poor competitor in the marketplace of ideas, which I think is true, and that how the recent popularity of atheism or atheism in the marketplace is hurt or helped by that. I am still struggling with this whole atheist thing. I don't like saying that I'm an atheist, even though I am an atheist, like I say in there, I'm a non-theist, because what changed for me is that I adopted a different way of understanding and filtering information. If there was more information that pointed towards a God, I would take that new information and change my mind. So I sincerely doubt that could ever happen, but I'm just saying that saying you're an atheist is kind of missing the point to me. It's really about adopting a strong critical view of the world. And I don't know about the whole atheist thing. I'm on the fence about it, because on the one hand, it definitely is more popular. It's so funny. My mom goes, oh, well, that atheism is just popular right now. But she said that about gay people, too. That's just a fad. And it made it definitely, like Dawkins and Harris and all these people have made saying you're an atheist much more acceptable in society. It's definitely true in big cities that I've been in. On the other hand, it's been also a way for people to categorize a whole movement and a whole worldview and reject it as being just like a religion. And if you really say atheist in that way, you can see how they would say that. Because it's like, when you're saying you're an atheist, it's like you're saying you have a strong stand about something that is immutable and will never change. I don't feel that way. And so I don't know. I'm thinking about that a lot, though, because I don't know what. I think modernity in itself is going to be the biggest mover of people away from religion. I think technology and the internet, people able to form groups like this one. I mean, just think 50 years ago, this many people wouldn't be in a group like this. These things are going to happen more and more as we're more connected with each other, as people have more information. I think that's what it's. I think people are going to not need religion as much, unless there's a huge catastrophe, and people will run back to it, and then it's very pessimistic. But anyway, that's my view. I haven't thought it all through yet. I'm not a guru in that sense. Yes? Well, I really, my daughter's 13, and I feel like I've succeeded and failed with her at the same time. Like I think every parent feels. If I had to do it over again, first of all, I'm married to somebody who really is anti-religion. He doesn't get it at all. He's a third-generation atheist in his family. It is just, he really thinks people who are hoodwinked or who are in a religion completely hoodwinked. And he wouldn't be interested in really even having our daughter have a religious education. Like, even to understand it, to combat it. I feel differently. I think I'm an artist. I feel like religion is art. I think it's a beautiful expression that comes from our artistic impulse, our creative artistic impulse. And like, I've recently been attending, when I can, this Unitarian Universalist church, which is totally, you can be a non-belief in God. And it's so fantastic. And they have this OWL program where kids go and they learn about all religions. Like, every Sunday to graduate, you have to know about all these religions. Now, to me, that's fantastic. I keep bringing this up with Mulan, and she's so against even thinking about her going to that. And I feel like I've kind of blown it with her. I do try to teach her about morality, but it's completely different than the way I was taught. I was taught, don't lie because God doesn't want you to lie. It's a commandment. But what I say to my daughter is, you know what's very valuable? Your reputation. When you lie, you have a bad reputation with people, and that's like losing currency. It's wrong to do it. In some ways, I argue for her own self-interest to be moral, which you could say is kind of creepy in itself, but it works. Like, she understands that. I didn't understand that as a kid, that it was my own reputation I had to protect, and being honest was a very important thing to be with other people, and you learn to identify other honest people, so that's just like one example. That's such a huge topic. Yes? Oh my God. Okay, that is so true. My life is so much better for not believing in all kinds of ways that it didn't even occur to me when I was going through that period. For example, I don't sit and wonder what my destiny, as you say, is going to be. That's a completely ridiculous concept to me. There is no destiny. There's luck and there's happenstance and there's my own forward direction and my own momentum and my own desire. And if the convergence of all those things means that good things happen the way I like, then that's great. And if it doesn't, it isn't my fault. I didn't pick the wrong thing. I didn't do the wrong thing. And I spent a lot of time in a hierarchical frame of mind of the universe where there was a top-down. Now that's the biggest difference. I used to see the world as top down, and now I see it as bottom up. And I'm so free of that kind of wondering, like I just looking at things critically like that just frees me from a lot of self-blame. And it's very ego-centered, that kind of thing. Like, why didn't I see that this was the right thing? And why didn't I pick up on these clues that my destiny was to step to the right? Like, that is a very me way to look. Like, I think when you really accept how humble a small part you are in the universe, it's a freeing feeling. It's really, most things aren't your fault, and most achievements you make aren't even to your credit. It's really, like, it's very, I think I see things much more realistically. And I was just saying this to Tyler. I was saying that because I haven't read Jared Diamond's new book yet, like What the Tribes Can Tell Us. He's the guy who wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, and he has a new book out. He has a great book called Why is Sex Fun? No one mentions that book with him. That's a great one. But he has a new book about tribal societies and what they can teach us, because all of his work is with tribal societies, like still really, like almost prehistoric type tribal societies in Indonesia. And I was thinking about that, not having read the book yet, but I thought, I could live with so many technological advances we have without them, I think. I think I could get used to building a fire and making my own clothes and whatever. But the thing I appreciate the most about being alive today is not the comforts, it's that I am free of superstition. And when I think of people who spent so much time thinking, but it was when I was thinking this thought about her that the tree branch fell down, and this means I have to circle the tree 3 times a day. Like, think of the human ingenuity and thought and emotion that have been wasted. And religion completely co-opts that, and that is probably the biggest thing. That does not get enough praise. Just living free of superstition is a fantastic advance that we all get to have. And that so many people who live in this industrial technological age have mindsets that are prehistoric and caught. You can't, until you get past the superstition, I feel like you can't be free enough to really, the whole superstition thing, that just makes me crazy. Okay, yes. Oh, spiritualist or materialist. Well, I try not to use the word spiritual, let's talk about spiritual first. I try not to use the word spiritual because it is a religious word, even though in our modern language, most people don't take it as a religious word. So for a while I thought, no, I'm going to use this word. This is a spiritual experience. If I use that word, you know what I mean. I know what I mean. It's a useful word then. But I try not to use that word because I think people misinterpret it and they think that it means mysterious things that we can't explain when it is things that we can explain. So I try to use words like profound or deeply meaningful. Like I really have come up with other adjectives besides spiritual to describe the experience that we all share many times, which some people would describe as spiritual. Materialist, I guess I don't know exactly enough about how people define that word. I have had people accuse me of being a materialist, and I just feel like, I don't know. First, for a while, I thought I could do a thing like with Madonna, like I'm a material girl in a material world. But I don't feel like, I think when people use the word materialist, they're using it in a negative way, implying that I only accept at face value things that can be proven and seen. And I don't feel that describes me either. So that really doesn't answer your question. I don't really know how I feel about those two things. The spiritual thing, I avoid the word. Yes? So basically she's saying, without religion, religion has provided a moral context and a social construct for people. And, fear of being punished in an afterlife has kept people possibly from killing each other. But I guess I think two things. And they're not, this is not, I haven't worked all this out in my mind. On the one hand, I think if what keeps you from murdering somebody is fear that God is going to punish you later, then I want you to believe in God. But I feel like thinking that way is very condescending, too, because, it's like saying, well, some people aren't smart enough, basically, to not believe in God, or something like that. And I don't like to think that way. I go up and back about whether that could be true or not. I don't really know. It doesn't feel comfortable to me to feel that way about people. But we have examples of basically godless societies that are probably more moral than ours. We have Sweden. We have places, we have European countries, at least right now, or other places where most people are non-believers. They usually have strong socialist government that provides a lot for people, so the social net is hugely there. There's a medical system in place. There's, Finland is a good example, like incredible education, incredible attention. Like talk about people who care about children. I mean, Finland is off the charts. And yes, they have the occasional mass murder who goes crazy, but in general, human beings do want to be moral. We're social animals. We evolved to be moral. I really think that we don't necessarily need it. I don't know. Probably not in my lifetime will we see, I do fear sometimes if religion were say this movement really catches fire and people just start dumping their religion. That scares me because I think that makes people ripe for nationalism, which I think is just as scary as religion. People in a frenzy and in groups can get crazy. And religion can temper that. I mean, we do live in a country where there's so many different religions that it makes it a little factionalized. I'm afraid of huge crowds screaming. I don't even go to football games because it creeps me out that everyone's screaming like that. And so I guess the reason it relates is I don't know if taking away religion is the answer either. Yes? When did I become funny? You know what? I don't really know. That's an interesting question because now I have a daughter who, she has a comedian mother and she wants to be funny, and I can see, and I remember definitely, and still true, trying to be funny and not being funny. I wasn't always, getting good jokes or anything, and I hate it when people say, oh, you're just born with it or you're not. I don't like that. It is kind of an ear for something, though, that I don't totally understand it in myself. I know I was voted most humorous girl 2nd grade through 8th grade at St. Augustine's. And I do remember my first joke, which I told in public, where I stood up in class and said it. It was not a good joke. There was something in the paper about horse meat being sold. Actually, this just happened recently, I saw, but there was like horse meat being sold at some fast food restaurant. And we were discussing it in 2nd grade. Sister Mary Kevin was like trying to keep a lid on everyone talking about the horse meat and the hamburgers. And I stood up and said something like, if a trumpet blows and your hamburger jumps up and runs. It was completely stupid. And not only that, I don't believe I made that joke up. I think I heard it somewhere. But I stood up and said that to the class, and I got this big laugh. And that was like somebody shot me with heroin. I was just like, oh, fantastic. Like, I want that again and again and again. So I think at an early age, I really liked getting the laugh. And then my mind sought those situations where I could get the laugh. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of could. Partly it was my father. I have to credit him because while he was a believer and he was the one who said all that, he always said it with like this laugh, like, and now you're 7, so you've reached the age of reason. You're now able to commit any and all sins against God and man. Like, so he had a sense of humor in the way he was saying it. So I got that it was funny. Yes. No, this is totally not ad-libbed. This is all written down and memorized. Actually, I'm 1/4 German and 3/4 Irish. My mom is half German, half Irish, and my dad was all Irish. Well, I think it's a huge part of my identity in ways that I don't even quite understand fully. Culture is a really interesting thing. It's really bigger than all of us. We're all just little pieces of flotsam and jetsam floating along on this huge cultural thing. I mean, we really are. How do we even really know how much of it affected us? But from what I know when I was young, my dad used to play Brendan Behan records, who was an Irish autobiographical novelist and activist, and who died of alcoholism at age 40 or something. And I remember he said, he died of the Irish disease. And I actually thought he meant storytelling. I didn't realize he meant alcoholism. I was like, oh, you gotta watch it with that stuff. So it was like, and we used to have these Wednesday nights, these family nights. I hear the Mormons have these family nights too. But my dad would Xerox copies of plays and we would all read, and they were mostly Irish plays. And so I see now that this kind of humor and the Catholic Church and this ability to laugh at the Catholic Church while still being part of the Catholic Church, I definitely learned that. Like you could totally laugh. That's what made it so hard to leave, because it was sort of like, no, we'll all laugh at it. It's all crazy. The stories are crazy, but you're not going to leave it, I think that's Irish, It's a kind of an allegiance, almost a familial allegiance. So I guess I'm Irish that way. And I do like Ireland. I have gone many times to Ireland. I really love it there. I don't know. Yes. She's asking how we cope with holidays being married to an atheist. He's like Jewish atheist, although not even religious Jewish at all. We don't celebrate holidays that much, I have to say. We just voted Christmas off the island, which is my favorite holiday. We went away for 2 weeks at Christmas, and I was gonna put up the tree. And by the way, my husband never had a tree his whole growing up, so the whole tree thing is new to him, but I love it, and I thought my daughter loved it. And then I was like, well, we're gonna be gone for Christmas, so I wanna put the Christmas tree up right after Thanksgiving so we can really enjoy it before we leave town. And Mulan was like, oh, that's so much work. Why are you doing that? She goes, we're having a family vote. Tree, yes or no? So we voted. I voted yes. Mulan and Michael voted no. And so then I said, okay, well, you know what? To me, presents go along with the tree. So if we're not going to have a tree, we're not going to have presents either. Oh, yeah. And then, no, because he never celebrated Hanukkah. His family, see, I didn't know about this part of Americana. His family is Jewish communist socialists who are atheists. They're Jewish. Education is huge. They're almost all in very high-level sciences. Michael's mother, oh my God, she's so fantastic, Norma, went to communist summer camp every summer. No, and like being from here, like from Washington, communism is this crazy red menace. Like no one in America would be communist except for maybe some Hollywood screenwriters. Like totally misunderstanding that it's like a communist socialist movement, and it's not even communist. It's like, anyway, but so he's from this very strong tradition, and in fact, just this last week, I wrote this book that's coming out in April, that If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother, and I just did the recording of it, and Norma is in one chapter of it, Michael's mother, and she came out, and the director from New York came, and she started talking to Norma, and she's from the same Workers' Party, she went to, these things still exist. Like this tradition is still, and it's really a beautiful tradition. It makes me love America. Like, this is incredible. So I didn't even know about that part. They are completely anti any religious holiday. There is no Hanukkah, there's no Passover. They are like workers unite. And so, anyway, so we didn't have the tree, and we didn't have presents. This was our first year we didn't have presents. I have to say, I think it was kind of great. The no presents thing was really good. Why do people don't need more stuff? We have enough stuff. If anything, we should be giving away stuff. But anyway, so there's that. On Easter, I do like to make a ham and my mother's potatoes. I do like the Easter egg stuff. I love Thanksgiving because it's about food. To me, that's a great holiday. There's a lot of holidays that aren't religious. You can do you can do Easter as spring is here. And, Thanksgiving can be the beginning of winter. I don't know. I'm piecing it together, people. Okay. Yes? Pat's religion. Pat would have to be agnostic. No, Pat is gone. Baby, gone. Anyone else? Are we done? Wait, back there. Oh my God, Victoria Jackson. Okay. So I was on Saturday Night Live with Victoria Jackson, who was an evangelical Christian then. And I've always had a good relationship with Victoria. The great thing about Victoria is you never wonder what she's thinking. She just says exactly what she's thinking, and there's no subterfuge about it, So I always got along with Victoria. I didn't really engage with her then. I was kind of a believer then. I was just but I wasn't like her. She was really off the charts pretty much then, but not being outspoken about it. I remember a moment where I was rehearsing a scene. Al Franken, me, Victoria, we're just waiting for lighting. Obviously, Al and Victoria have been in some political argument that I wasn't part of. I'm suddenly sitting down, and they're sitting there, and Al leans over and he goes, Victoria, you do believe that poor people should have access to health care, right? You do believe, as a Christian, that poor people should be able to go to the doctor if they're sick, right? And Victoria said, no, because if they die, they'll just go to heaven sooner. Yeah, no joke, people. And I was like, haha, good one. And Al's like, she's not joking. It's so hard. I still don't get Victoria because she says things that are so outrageous. I have so many people write to me and say, she's doing an Andy Kaufman act, right? And she's gonna, please tell me this is a performance artist thing. But it isn't. Or this is not about religion, but one time she said this great joke to me. She said, I didn't spend that much time with my daughter Scarlett when she was a baby because I figured she wouldn't remember. And I go, oh my God. I go, Victoria, that is so funny. I go, you should do that in your stand-up act. And she goes, but I really didn't. But I think she does get laughs, and then she does follow the laughs to a certain extent. I mean, she is a comedian. It's very confusing. Okay, so we were we were acquaintances. I wouldn't say friends, but friendly acquaintances. Then I did Letting Go of God, and she came to my show, and she went to Bible college in Florida, and she brought like 6 Bible college guys with her that she went to college with, like some professors even. They all came to the show. And they were like, okay, we're going to really talk to you afterwards. And I was like, bring it on, baby. And afterwards, I have to say this across the board from religious people, they didn't have anything. They have nothing. Like, I have to say, when I was a believer, I thought all the smart people had all the arguments somewhere. Then I found out, no, they do not. They do not have the argument somewhere. So they were saying, well, they weren't out, I can't even remember, the questions were not, they were so not hard-hitting or really to the heart of the matter in any way, and they knew it. It wasn't like they thought they were giving a zinger out there, and they weren't. It was just kind of this awkward talk after the show. Then Victoria sent me an email and said, I'm going to do a show that's the opposite of you. I said, can't wait to buy a ticket. Let me know when your show is on. Then she goes, well, I'm going to debate the Bible with you. The Bible does not contradict itself, like you said in the first 2 chapters. The first chapter is like an overview, and the second chapter of the Bible is more specifics. And so I wrote back and I go, well, let's just take the first and second books of the Bible of Genesis and just chapters, and look at it. And I go, see, they're actually contradictory. In this one, trees and grass comes after this or that, or whatever it was. And then she wrote back and said, wow, this is harder than I thought it would be. And then I wrote back and said, you're the one who went to Bible college. What do they teach at Bible college? Then we parted ways, and then I never thought I'd hear from her again, but I didn't feel like it was unfriendly. Then all of a sudden, people were sending me emails pointing me to her web show, her crazy web show, where she was singing on a ukulele, my friend from SNL, who's now an atheist, and she's going to hell, and she's going to burn for all eternity. Like, I didn't know what. I did. I tweeted something. I don't even tweet. I hate the whole Twitter universe. But anyway, she was making so many. My husband reads these tweets, and he has Victoria Jackson on his thing. So every once in a while, he'll tell me something she tweeted, which is insane. And this latest stuff with all the guns with her. Anyway, so I sent a tweet saying, Victoria, God wants you to be quiet, John 2:12. And no, it wasn't God. It was like Timothy 2:12. But whatever it was like women should stay at home and never speak in public. And I never got a response. But I thought that was a good one. Okay, I guess that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Myelina for a little social after for those who'd like to attend, and we'll see you guys next year at Darwin on the Palouse 2014. Thank you.